You've probably heard the story, right? Jesus gets accused of using demonic power. But what if the accusers weren't actually talking about Satan? What if they were accusing him of something completely different? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive into the history and uncover a really surprising truth behind one of the most famous accusations of all time.
Okay, so here's our central puzzle. The Pharisees, a big religious group back then, accused Jesus of casting out spirits by the power of a god named Baal. So the question is, why that specific god? I mean, this wasn't just some random insult they came up with. No, this was a very, very specific charge, and it's our first big clue in solving this whole mystery.
To really get this, we have to kind of transport ourselves back in time to 1st century Judea. This accusation, it makes sense only in that specific time and place with a set of beliefs that are pretty different from how we think about things today.
The charge is crystal clear. You're casting out spirits by the power of Baal. Now, to figure out why his accusers made this exact connection, we have to look at the evidence they had. And our investigation is going to start with geography. Like, where on earth was Jesus when all this was going down?
All right, clue number 1 is all about location, location, location. We're going to follow Jesus on a little trip he takes, a trip that lands him right in the middle of a foreign culture and deep inside the territory of a very powerful local god.
The Gospel of Mark tells us straight up that Jesus travels to the region of Tyre and Sidon. For us, that's basically the coast of Lebanon today. But back then, it was known as Syrophoenicia. And notice that detail. He tried to keep a low profile, but people found him anyway. That's going to be important.
So, you might be asking, who was the main god, the big deal, in Tyre and Sidon? The heart of Phoenicia? You guessed it, it was Baal. So Jesus didn't just pop over to another town. From their perspective, he walked straight into Baal's backyard.
And look, Baal wasn't just some minor spirit hanging around. No way! He was the guardian god of the city of Tyre. His influence spread all across the Phoenician world and their colonies, from Malta all the way to Carthage. His name was even built right into the names of royalty, like King Ethbal, which means with Baal. This god was woven into the absolute fabric of their lives.
Okay, so we've got the location down, but the accusation actually gets a lot more personal. Our second clue suggests that for the people around him, Jesus' connection to this whole region went way deeper than just one trip.
Now, in ancient Jewish rabbinic writings, there's a name that pops up for Jesus, Ben Pantera. It literally means son of Pantera. This was part of a pretty widespread tradition that claimed Jesus' biological father wasn't Joseph, but a man named Pantera.
And get this, it gets incredibly specific. Back in 1859, a tombstone was unearthed in Germany. It belonged to a Roman soldier named Tiberius Julius Abdus Pantera. And can you guess where he was from? Sidon, the exact same Phoenician city that Jesus was visiting. So if you're one of his accusers, you're now seeing a rumored family connection directly to the homeland of Baal worship.
And then you've got Jesus' own words adding fuel to the fire. He directly compares Jewish towns unfavorably to these so-called pagan cities, Tyre and Sidon, saying the Phoenicians would have been more sincere and quicker to repent. To his critics, it must have sounded like he was praising these outsiders over his own people.
So let's just step into their shoes for a second. Imagine you see this guy who, according to rumor, is the son of a Phoenician soldier. Then he takes a trip to Phoenicia, to the land of Baal, and then you hear him saying how great the people there are. You can start to see how a certain picture was beginning to form in their minds, right?
But hold on, because there's one last piece of the puzzle we need, and honestly, it's the most important one. To really crack this case, we have to understand what the word demon actually meant to the people making the accusation, and I think the answer is going to surprise you.
So the original Hebrew word that we now translate as demon is shadim. But here's the kicker. Back then, in the Hebrew Bible, shadim didn't mean some evil, malevolent creature from hell. It was actually a pretty neutral term. It just meant the gods of foreigners. That's it. They were thought to be powerless compared to the God of Israel, sure, but not necessarily wicked.
You can really see the shift here. The original idea of Shadim, just foreign gods, not really evil, slowly morphed into this later concept of daimonia or demons, which we now think of as actively evil enemies of God. The meaning just completely changed over time.
So what happened? What caused this big change in thinking? Well, a huge influence was a Persian religion called Zoroastrianism.
It had a dualistic worldview, which is a fancy way of saying it saw the universe as this epic battle between a force of pure good and a force of pure evil. And this idea started to bleed into both Jewish and eventually Christian thought.
And we actually see proof of this cultural exchange right there in the Gospels. You know the wise men who visit baby Jesus? The actual Greek word used is magoi, the magi. These guys weren't kings. They were Zoroastrian priests from Persia, known for their astrology and their religious ideas. So the connection was very real, and it was happening right then.
Okay, we've got all our clues. We have the location, the rumored family history, the personal praise for the people, and now the original meaning of the word demon. Let's put it all together and finally solve this thing.
Let's just walk through their line of thinking. From their point of view, number 1, Jesus is in Baal's territory. Number 2, rumor has it his dad is a Phoenician. Number 3, he's on the record praising the locals. So their conclusion? When he casts out a local spirit, what they'd call a shed, he must be doing it by calling on the power of the chief local god, the chief shed, which is Baal. For them, it was just a logical conclusion based on all the evidence they saw.
And that is the solution to our mystery. The accusation sounds so much worse to us because the meaning of that key word, demon, has completely changed. They weren't accusing him of being in league with the devil. They were accusing him of being an outsider, working with an outside power, and using the power of a foreign god. It's a totally different charge.
And that just leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought to chew on. When we read these ancient texts, we automatically bring our own modern definitions and ideas to them. If just understanding the original meaning of a single word can completely reframe a story this famous, well, what other parts of history might we be misunderstanding? What else could we see in a new light if we just looked a little closer at the language? It really makes you wonder.